Hey, welcome to episode 32 of Mike's Moment of. And for this moment, my guest is Joan Andrea Hutchinson, writer, actor, broadcaster. She does social work and so much more. Now, this is a culturally packed, dense, rich episode. If you've been enjoying the podcast, I want to ask you just one little tiny favor. Share an episode with a friend. With a friend you think might enjoy what we're talking about. You know, just one episode with one friend. All right? Cool. So I see you on the other side of this music and this intro. I'm Michael Sean Harris, and you're listening to Mike's Moment of, a weekly podcast in which I, along with my guests, share our various interests in moments of inspiration, truth, life, technology, culture, and more. I hope you're entertained and informed, and that you feel inspired to join me again and again in my moments of. All right, well, welcome to this episode of Mike's Moment of, and tonight, we're talking with Joan Andrea Hutchinson, who has many other names. That bumpy head gal, is that right?
Yeah,
and
one of them.
And the didn't Louise Belly call her the liquor girl? Is the liquor girl
child?
The liquor what?
The liquor Hutchinson child.
The liquor Hutchinson child. Right. So, all right. So today, I kind of want to talk about, because you have books on this. You have books on Jamaican Proverbs. So I wanted to get into some of those, the meanings, and if you know where some of them come from, and you know how they use that kind of stuff. But also just to talk about your journey as well. Your journey in all the things that you do in television, production, acting, everything, writing. You know, because you do enough.
Yeah, man, whole lot of different things, you know. But
yes.
I tell everybody that the underpinning is I consider myself a communicator. So whether it is I'm communicating in the classroom, teaching students, whether it is I'm communicating from the stage, whether I'm communicating from radio, it's all about being an expert communicator. You know, whether it is I'm going to sit down with a little boy on the street corner or I'm talking to 5,000 people, it all hinges on being a good communicator. Whether I'm ever chatting a patois, whether I'm ever chatting a English, it's all about being a communicator. Because no matter what fabulous message you have, if you not communicate the message, you might as well you hug it up and go in your bathroom you want.
True. And but you know the communication thing is especially now, you know, it's a big deal. Even you know, the various situations that I'm in, sometimes people don't know, you know, how they're communicating messages to people all the time, whether it's in their body language or their reactions to things that happen or what they say, you know, and just to be aware of where the people around you are and what your presence communicates to them, I guess, is probably the best word to say.
Yeah, because when I look, for example, at what's happening now, coronavirus has forced a lot of people into technology, people who were not into technology before. And something that I want to say to a lot of people is remember that video is a close-up medium. So we've always been told that the stage is larger than life. So when you get on stage, you act and you make it really large and really big. But video brings you right up close and personal to your audience. So you no longer have to go overboard with the expressions and you open your eyes wide. And I'm looking at a lot of people doing video and the camera is right up close up in your face, but you're doing the overdone thing with it's too much, but people don't realize.
Yes. And sometimes you see that. Yeah, sometimes you see that with people who are stage actors and who are going to film and that haven't quite made the transition, or going to video and haven't quite made the transition.
The video is close-up medium. People need to just remember that basic rule.
Yeah. So, all right. So, tell me some of these. I mean, we're gonna sprinkle them in, but give me a couple of the proverbs. I've been compiling a list, but I won't. And so far I haven't missed much. I have about 138, and I'm sure there's more. But
Okay, yeah, but and, I mean, you go to different parts of the country, you hear different proverbs. But what I say to people is that every single society has proverbs. Every language group, every cultural group has proverbs because it's part of the way in which we make sense of our environment, make sense of our reality. And you have proverbs which translate from one, country, one environment to the other. I say, for example, the English proverb, a drowning man will clutch at a straw. There's a Jamaican equivalent. There are many Jamaican equivalents, but one Jamaican equivalent is before me tumble down my whole maca.
yes,
It's
yes, yes, yes.
the same thing. There's a proverb in French that says, tous les goûts sont dans la nature. All tastes exist in nature. In other words, every O of him tick a bush. Every
Yes.
O of him tick a bush. So every language group has proverbs. Now, in terms of Jamaican proverbs, I just absolutely am in love with Jamaican proverbs. My mother, and this is where a lot of my cultural influence comes from, my mother used to use proverbs to discipline me, right? My mother was not a beater. She used proverbs to discipline me. The mother who just look at you one look and you fall in line. But my mother used proverbs, and sometimes she says some things and it burn you, it hurt you. You don't know how to respond. She used the proverbs like it's so heavy, it's so deep. You kind of like you're stunned. You don't know what to. So she used a lot of proverbs in terms of disciplining us. So, for example, she'd use a proverb that said, this one, fire there must go steal and think a cool breeze. So you're carrying on with your little outard and this, and you think you're doing, say you do something bad, say you do something bad, kind of thing. And what she's doing, she's threatening you. Continue, man, continue, because something is around the corner coming for you. So when she says, fire there must steal in think a cool breeze, I mean, I would just fall in line because I knew something was going to happen. Some kind of punishment was coming. Fire there must steal in think a cool breeze. I absolutely love that. There's a proverb that says, ram wood foot broke in fine yard. Now, how do we break that down? Now, you have a picnic and, you're trying to give them some advice, they're not paying no mind. Or some young people in your organization that you're trying to give them some counsel because of things they're not paying no mind upon them, they read them about their business. Because as soon as them go there and then get themselves into some kind of trouble, them run straight back home to mommy and to daddy. So the proverb is, ram goat foot broke in fine yard. Because that's really, really what happens. My mother also used to use this one. She said, yes, man. Showman said, oh, stay further, see better. Now, you remember the old-time picture show? You used to go to an old-time picture show. They used to have one little man who his responsibility was to crank up the show reel. So you see him riding the thing round and round and round. That is the showman, right? The proverb is, showman said, oh, stay further, see better. Because when you go to the show, the picture show, the film, the movie theater, if you sit too close up front, right under the screen, you're not seeing the thing so well. But if you back off a little, you see it a little better when you sit a little further back. So the proverb says, showman. Showman is a man who reel up crank up the film reel. Showman says, who stay further, see better. Basically, you're so close to a situation sometimes. You have a little boyfriend, you have a little girlfriend, or you start keep some bad company, but you're so close to it, you can't see what the danger is. Sometimes your parents, the people older than you, are able to say, that the bad company not good for Michael, or that the bad company not good for Joan, or that person I'm hanging out with, or that situation that they're going to. But you so close, you can't see it. You can't see it. But, it's like a couple get married and it broke apart, mashed up in a little while, and there are people who could have said, yeah, I saw it. Because they're further away, they can see with a clearer lens. So the proverb, man say, who stay further, see better. So this is, for me, proverbs are not just entertainment. For a lot of people think, proverbs just entertainment, ha ha ha, Jamaican culture. There's a lot of serious, solid teaching. I think my favorite proverb of all times is one that said, donkey probably run past donkey, but turn up a crossroads. Have you ever heard that one?
Say it again. No, but that sounds unfamiliar.
Okay, donkey cubby run past donkey, but turn up a crossroads. No. Donkey cubby, that is the baby donkey or the big adult donkey.
Oh, okay.
Donkey cubby is the big
That's a baby, the cub. That's
the
a
little
cub. Yeah,
baby
the
donkey.
baby.
So you have some little young people them coming to your organization, for example, if them have 10 degrees. Them step past the big donkey because them know everything. They want step past. But when they get to a point where there's a problem, a crossroads, then kind of taunted, as we say in Jamaica, because they don't have the benefit of experience to be able to deal with a problem when it arises. So the problem is, the proverb is, donkey cubby run past donkey, but turn up a crossroads. When they get to a crossroads, they don't know which way to turn. Donkey cubby run past donkey, but turn up a crossroads. So I love to use the proverbs to teach all the time. Everybody knows this one. How did I see Mama when make her mouth so long? You must know that one day.
I've heard that one.
Yes, man. So. I did ask, my mother used that on me. Miss Emma of blessed memory. She used Proverbs to discipline me. So, again, I'm flipping up about something, I'm doing something wrong, and I'm, thinking I know more than her about something. And she would just say, I did ask him, Mama, we make her mouth so long. And she said, you are grow, you will know. In other words, you get older. Because, even when I was at St. Andrew High School, I used to criticize the sixth formers, how them this and them that and them this and them that, because, they were always trying to discipline the lower school. And when you got to sixth form yourself, you understood. It's like you're in a particular organization, you criticize the boss, but when you get into a position of leadership, you realize that you yourself have to behave in a particular kind of way. So, how did ask him, Mama, we make our mouth so long? And she said, it's all right, you grow, you will know. Those are just a few of the proverbs. I just love the proverbs. Trust me.
Yes. But there's some of them that aren't as clear. I mean, some of these are clear, but some of them you have to really think or try and figure them out.
Yeah, but always shades and levels of meaning. And just a little bit about me. I mean, like a lot of people, because of the work that I do, I overhear people talking. I say, yeah, man, she did go to school at so-and-so down at Catalupa with my cousin, and she did grow next door to my granny. Poor me, born and grow at Kingston and St. Andrew, go to St. Andrew High School. So a lot of my work has to do with serious research. I'm passionate about rural people. I wish me born and grow up country. I grudge everybody who born and grow up country. So a lot of, like, even the proverbs, a lot of them I learned from my mother. But when I was doing my first CD and my second CD of Jamaican Proverbs, I remember I went to a golden age home and sat down with some people who were like in their 80s and their 90s. And this is how I did a lot of my research. They told about the Proverbs, they explained them to me, they talked about the different levels. So some of it is research.
Yes. Wow. I'm gonna pick one at random from my long list. Hopefully, it's not one you said already. Belly full, I draw down.
That's right. Oh yes. Come on. You see, when you're hungry, you're very alert because you have to go look it. When belly full now, you just
relax.
There are, as I tell you, there are different layers of meaning. So there's a literal meaning because when you're belly full, you kind of just want to sleep and you want to relax. You don't have to look it. You don't have to look it so hard, right? And that for me links to another one which says, "Man have raw meat, him look fire."
Yes.
Do you know that one?
Yes. Man have raw meat, him seek fire.
Yeah, him seek fire. I mean, you, for example, you have a car and I don't have a car. And I said to you, Michael, give me a ride at the end of the work, End of the work, you come, you have your run on and look for me. No, it's me supposed to look for you because man have raw meat. Me have a problem. Me have raw meat that need to cook. I must be running down the fire, not the fire running down the raw meat. So man have raw meat, him look fire. When I look sometimes at people in society who are very, very, well dressed and they have all the trappings, but they have so many inner demons wrestling with all the time. And there's a proverb that says, dog a sweat, but long hair cover him. Dog a sweat, but long hair cover him. Because if a dog, me and you sweat, you see it on our skin, right? Dog a sweat, you're not seeing it because dog have hair, especially if it's a very hairy dog. So the long hair refers to things like the trappings and the trimmings of life. So you have a nice wife or a nice husband, a nice job, you have a nice car, you live in a nice neighborhood, blah, blah, blah. But underneath you have all kind of things dealing with in your soul. Your soul is tormented, something bad happening to you. You go out there, you clean your teeth, and you go on like all this, as Jamaicans say, you go on like all this peace and safety. Yeah. Dog,
Yeah.
a sweat, but long hair covering.
And that's like you can't judge a book by its cover. You don't know what's going on inside.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What about hang up packy comb?
But absolutely. Now that speaks to, I mean, I can't just every day is a one-way thing that every day me I give you, me I give you, me I give you. Right. What about the reciprocity? What are you going to give back to me? So it's not that you're giving people in the expectation that they're going to give back to you, but it's not a one-way thing. Life not just it's not a one-way thing. Yeah. I was referring to Khalil Gibran just yesterday. I'm very, very big on Khalil Gibran. And Gibran, as you know, is an 18th century, either 16th or 18th century Lebanese philosopher, also an artist. And he spoke about giving. He says, you give but little when you give of your possessions. It is when you give of yourself that you truly give. So you always have to be giving because life is like, listen to me, life is part of this. We're part of this chain of giving and receiving. I mean, I always say to people, say the universe stores acts of kindness in its DNA, and one day you draw down on it. So we all have to be constantly giving, whether or not you think people deserving, whether you just give.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We'll come back to some more of the proverbs. I want to hear about when you started on stage and these experiences with Louise Bennett and stuff, but the stuff that you were doing.
Yeah, well, how did stage start for me? I was in primary school. I was attending New Providence Primary School. And I mean, Providence. I have to give you this one in 10 seconds because it's really. I went to school at Providence Primary School. It was where Providence Methodist Church is? Yes,
no.
one right up Tigani, right before you.
Oh yes.
Providence Methodist Church on the right hand side if you're going up, right?
Yes.
Yes. It started as a little church school in a little church annex and thing, and of course the educator was very, very good, and so the school population grew and grew and grew and grew till it just outgrew all its classroom spaces. And so for a big part of my primary school life, we did classes in the cemetery. That's why I'm afraid of Duppy. We did classes sitting on tombstones. The teacher is there teaching in the cemetery. We played on tombstones. I mean, we never thought at any point that it was, inappropriate to be jumping on people's tomb and things. That's what we did as kids. That's where we had classes for my grade 4 and grade 5. Half of the time we were down in the cemetery. That's where we had classes because there was no space. And then when I was in grade 6, the ministry built New Providence, which is beside Chest Hospital, and we made the trek. We moved over to New Providence. So when I was actually at New Providence is when I actually started writing. That would have been like 10, 11.
Wow.
But yeah, my first poem was not in Jamaican language at all. My first poem was a poem about Sir Alexander Bustamante, because I think it was at about that time that he died. That would have been early 70s. And I don't remember the year, but I think Buster died at that point. And, state funeral and people lining up in the streets, and they were showing lots of videos about him. And I thought, this man is so tall. And I remember the first poem was, he was a leader, a chief, not just any old chief, but the chief, because remember he was called the chief. So that was my first poem. And then when at the same time I was exposed to Louise Bennett's work. The first poem that I was exposed to was one called Sarah Chase, where the girl got downtown to go vote, and she didn't know which one to vote for, so she just go inside of the voting booth and she just close her eye and make a devil of her X. That is how she votes. She didn't know who she voted for. But I was just fascinated with her use of language and the way she described people. And Duckfoot, I'm on knock me son. We go downtown to go vote the other day. That mood. And Duckfoot, I'm on knock me son, cause me to get out rude. Duckfoot, I'm on knock me son. Okay, right. It's just like, I'm like, whoa, this woman is for real. So
it just paints the picture immediately. It's like,
Duckfoot, who calls people Duckfoot except in Jamaica? The Duckfoot. I just love Jamaican language. So that was the first time I read Miss Lou. And then when I got into high school, I had a teacher. I've never been able to find her, and I've always wanted to find her. Her name was Paulette Seaton. Paulette Seaton was a tall, fair-skinned teacher who wore long capes to school. This is to high school, she's a high school teacher. She would wear like pants and like a cape, an ankle-length cape. She was just like over dramatic, but she encouraged our love of writing. So in literature class, we'd write little poems, and she would say, "Yes, do this, do that, correct this." I listen. I credit Paulette Seton with a lot of what I have become as a writer, because she encouraged us. She was amazing. Of course, my mother she was a writer. She wrote a book which has never been published, and I won't publish it. I won't publish it at some point, trust me. But I got a lot of the creative juices from my mother. She took us to pantomimes, she took us to plays, she took us to the movies, she sang songs, she told us stories. So that's where a lot of that creative energy came from. And then I started writing in high school. I wrote for the school magazine, always writing poems and funny letters and funny jokes. And, my friends remember me as a class clown. I don't remember that, but so them say. Me don't remember that, but so them say. Yeah, so that's when the writing started. And then I started entering the JCDC festival. I was getting a lot of medals for my work in Jamaican language. I also did some, work in English as well, got some medals and stuff for it at JCDC. But the writing started in earnest when I left Jamaica. Because, when you're in Jamaica, right, you don't have Jamaica flag in your house, and you don't have red, green, and gold nothing, and you have no Jamaican nothing in your house because you are in Jamaica, right?
Yes.
When you live in foreign parts now, it's like you have to have those things in your house because you need to connect with Jamaica. Well, writing in Jamaican language, writing in patois, became my connection to Jamaica. I was living in Holland. I went to broadcasting school in Holland. I was a broadcaster at age 18. To date, I am still the youngest broadcaster who read major television news on JBC at age 18. Wonderful. And I tell you,
wonderful.
I was doing a Oliver Samuels, Aston Cook, and myself went to country. I think it was Clarendon or St. Catherine. Went to perform at some event, like some fun day or some barbecue. I'm just getting into the whole theater thing. I had started working at JBC, just started working as a production assistant. Bobby Gissays. I don't know if you knew Bobby Gissays.
I didn't know him, but I remember seeing him on TV.
Right.
Yes, so I knew him that way.
Right.
Yeah.
Bobby Gissays was my drama teacher at St. Andrew High School, and he must have seen something in me. And so as soon as I left high school, I did lower six at St. Andrew High School, and St. Andrew High School expelled me. I love to tell people this story. They put me out in lower six. And I went to Exed Community College and did my A-levels at Exed alongside people like Cliff Hughes and Patrick Anderson. Those guys were and Philip Paulwell. We all were in class together at Exed. And interesting, the same St. Andrew High School, my lovely, wonderful school that put me out in lower six. In a year after that, I came in as their graduation speaker, being back as graduation speaker, get distinguished old girl and all those. So, they stole that they will refuse it, right? Anyway,
right.
Yeah. So I had left Exed Community College, had a part-time job at JBC, myself and Rosamond Brown. And then I went to JBC. Bobby Gissays says, "Come, work as a production assistant." Just 18. Started working. So me, Oliver, and Aston Cook went to this tea in Clarendon. The evening we're coming back in. It was a little after 7 o'clock. And I said, I want to pass by the office to pick up a book. So I went inside. I think Oliver must have dropped us off, and Aston was with me. Aston used to par, And I went inside to pick up this book, and they said to me, the person who's supposed to read the news has not turned up. That time it was 7:30 news. The person who's supposed to read news has not turned up. I said, yes, and you have to read the news. They said, what do you mean? I have to? No, I can't. And then they're protesting because I'd never read news. Granted, I had done television stuff. When I was in high school, they had a thing called EBS, that's Educational Broadcasting Services. That is what is now PBCJ. That was EBS, Education Broadcasting. And I remember Marie Cunningham Clark. I remember she was the person who called us. I think she taught English part-time at St. Andrew High School. And she pulled in people like myself and Cecile Borras and a couple of other people. And that's how we went to EBS and we started doing programs. So I was participating in television programs, Spanish programs, English programs, etc. when I was in high school. So it wasn't completely new to me. Anyway, so we're there at JBC now, and them said to me I must read the news. I said, no, but I can't. And they called Bobby Gissays, who was my boss. And he just went into teacher-student mode with me. And he says, get into the studio and read the news. But get into the studio. I didn't have a choice. I remember I had on like a t-shirt and jeans. Now, here's the story. I took off Aston Cook's shirt. Aston and I were very tight. I took off Aston Cook's shirt. I remember it was like a, what you call army green shirt. And I spun it backwards. So it had a kind of stand-up collar across the front of my neck. Aston put on my t-shirt. My hair was all over the place. It was cream, but it was all over the place. I went into the bathroom and I used lotion and water and slicked my hair back because gel, I don't think gel did invent yet, or we never really know gel in Jamaica. But I used water and lotion and slicked my hair back. I borrowed the earrings from the security guard and borrowed the security guard's lipstick. I put on lipstick and I put on rouge. I swear I did put on some all over my eyelid. And I got into the studio. Good evening, I'm Joan Andrea Hutchinson, and this is news. And I read the news. Apparently, it went well. So Monday morning, I got flowers. The director of news at the time was Concy Walters. The Concy Walters Cancer Hospice at St. Joseph's is named after him. So he was the director of news. I got flowers from him. Gloria Lannerman was the general manager at the time. I got flowers from her. I got like about 3 or 4 bouquets on Monday morning. Everybody telling me, you are so good. And then at that point, I went into regular rotation for news. So I was the youngest newsreader. So I was reading alongside Pat Lazarus, Faye Ellington, Diana Wright, Ruth Hoshing, Tony Patel, Uriel Aldridge, Dennis Hall. Yeah, that was my time. That was my time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, man. I love that story.
Yes, yeah, trust me, man. Like Aston's shirt. Aston's shirt is what did it.
Oh, wow. Well, we miss him, though. We miss Aston a lot.
Absolutely.
No.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
All right. I have another proverb. Maga cow, a bull mama.
Oh yes. Maga cow a bull mama. Yeah. Maga cow a bull mama. I mean, sometimes it is you see there's an artist that sings a song about mama old murderer cry da, 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 da. It's like some big murderer, and when his mother goes down to the courthouse, he's like bawling like a baby. Because you find a man enough, no matter how big and bold and bad them is, they're afraid of their mother. And sometimes the mother is one whingy little rat, but they're afraid of their mother, right? And sometimes, I'm not knocking men, surely, because men are amazing, but sometimes when you see what women go through, sometimes you see a little woman and she hold on 3, 4 jobs and she look after 4 or 5 picnic, and you say, how does she do it? How does she do it? And that leads me to another proverb, very, similar in meaning. And it says, bull horn can't too heavy for bull head. Bull horn can't too heavy for bull head. In other words, if this is your lot in life, you have 5 picnic, other persons really look on and say, oh my God, how do you do that? That's what you have. That's your lot. You're going to make it work. So the horn cannot be too heavy for your head. You're going to make it work. Bull horn can't too heavy for bull head. So the proverbs are here to teach us, always here to teach us.
What about this one? Me and you no plant gungo line.
Child, chat. Thank you, please. Oh yes. I mean, you may think, for example, well, we were born in the same community, or we're in the same family, etc. But we're so different. You know what I mean? Yeah, we don't plant bunga line. We don't plant bunga line. And, what I love is the throw word ability of Jamaicans. When they make us say, "Well, come here, plant bunga line." I mean, that's just enough to cut you down. Two proverbs that I love. There's so many proverbs I love, right? Tiger want fi nyamin picnic is say favor puss. Tiger want fi nyamin picnic is say favor puss. That really speaks to our ability to justify anything we want to justify. So you was doing something before and I was cussing, Michael was doing that and that was so inappropriate. All of a sudden, me, I do the same thing, and me can you see, the reason I'm doing it is because so and so. I can justify it. So, Tiger want when yamin pick me, he say favor puss.
Yes. What about where it's skinny, it cut?
Oh, Michael, who says that? Who? Anywhere imaga dong he pop. Anywhere imaga dong he pop. Because where it's skinny, it breaks. Pull up severe, God.
I'm just
No
saying
man,
the version I know.
no matter anyway, maga don't pop. Anyway,
Yeah.
maga don't pop. So we want to have a little party to celebrate you. You have just put out your new work and ting, and boy, no money no run, Everybody said, no man, come let's get together and have a little party and ting. Anyway, imaga don't pop. So if it's one loaf of bread and one tin of sardine, we make some sardine sandwich. We mix some lemonade and thing. We're having a grand time. Anyway, the money maga don't pop. Anyway, the food thing it pop. There's a proverb again that I just love my proverbs. If you go a thumper foot dance, you fit dance thumper foot. If you go a thumper foot dance, you fit dance thumper foot. Okay, so what is thumper foot or who is thumper foot? A stump of a foot. So if
Okay.
you are an amputee, or maybe you had poliomyelitis, and one leg is shorter than the other, so you kind of walk, as them say, walk and drop short, 1 foot longer than the other, right? So if you go to a thumper foot dance and everybody is dancing, long and short, thumper foot, you can't go to people in dance come go on like say you come from the Ravens posse or you is Bogle or you're a big dancer. If you go a thumper foot dance, you dance thumper foot. In other words, when in Rome, do as the
Do as a
do.
romance.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You go a thumper foot dance, you dance thumper foot. You know, and
Yes,
I
yes,
think,
yes.
just in terms of hard work, I love to use Proverbs to talk about hard work. Jackass back strong, they overload him hamper. You know that one person in the study group who everybody make all the work drop down on that one smarty, right? The
Mm.
more work you do, as I said, the reward for hard work is more work. So the more work you do, everybody says, sure, I'm not have to kill myself because Michael will do the work, man. Michael will make it happen. I just said to Michael. So half of the people in the group nobody do the work because Michael will do their part. So the proverb is jackass back strong, then overload him hamper. You
I
would
see that a lot.
you would
See that a lot.
Michael will probably say the jack horse's back is strong. The jack horse.
Leave me alone. Leave me. All right. Well, we cockroach have a one game friend.
Well, cockroach have what?
What cockroach have a one game friend.
Thank you. You can't listen. You can't give what you don't have.
Mhm.
You cannot give what you don't have. So what cockroach have a eating game friend, right? Of course, there are other cockroach proverbs. Cockroach no business, not foul fight. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
thing is, and the it's a kind of corollary proverb to what cockroach having game friend is. You can't take big water by boil cow skin. You can't take big water but boil cow skin. Now, if you cook cow skin, you will know that cow skin is something that is tough, that take lots of water and lots of fire to cook because you boil it, it's still tough. Just keep on adding water to the pot and now if you don't have your own water and you have to go a fence side, oh, Mr. Michael, beg you one keg of water, and him give one little bit of water. You start to boil the cow skin, it evaporate out. You can't go back, go beg more water. So, in other words, if you have something to do that's going to take a lot of resources, you need to have your own resources. Not go out beg something big. You can't be begging to do that. So the proverb is beg water can't boil cow skin.
Yeah. Brilliant. Makes sense. Makes complete sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. We're coming back to more proverbs. Now we're gonna go back to your life.
Mm-hmm.
This is your life. All right. So so after, well, I mean, there's no after because a lot of these things were happening concurrently. Um, when did you decide to publish or to record and stuff?
Well,
When
actually, I was overseas. I was living in Holland and living in Spain and lived in Tunisia, and my connection to home was, just writing, writing, writing. When I came home, after a couple of years, I remember Carolyn Cooper. There was a lady called, oh God, something, Karen Gentles. She was doing a poetry reading over in Port Royal at the old jail. What was the old jail? And I think it was Mervyn Morris, it was Mutabaruka, it was Eddie Ball, and she invited me. And there was a poet from another country, can't remember, but she invited me. I think she knew Carolyn Cooper, and Carolyn said, "Oh, this girl Joan Andrea Hutchinson, she's back and her work is pretty good. Blah blah. Give her a little chance. Give her a boss on the show." So I went over to the old jail in Port Royal, and we did this thing. And Michael Record wrote, and oh man, when I look at some of those reviews now, when he wrote about the fact that the barman put down his glasses and stopped paying attention to what he was doing just to watch and listen and just drink. Because remember, I was new to the space. I'd been away for a little while. I'd not been writing and performing except for years ago in festivals, so nobody knew me at that point because I was out of space. So apparently I did very, very well. So a couple of weeks later, they had another poetry reading at Port Royal, and they invited me to headline that. So it was myself and I think a writer from Barbados. So I was performing very heavily. Now, I knew I wanted to write my first book, but I was just performing. I was getting a lot of jobs performing. And then, because I was a television host before I left Jamaica, I was invited to host this program called Tuesday Forum. I think the regular host, one of the beacons of broadcasting, Elaine Witt, amazing human being, amazing broadcaster.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think Elaine was unavailable, so they asked me. At the time, I was working at Power 106 as a news editor. And they asked me to host this program. It was about study skills. So I'm working at Power 106. I was doing a program called CXC Power, thanks to Leakim Samaj. It was his concept, his brainchild. The concept was, look, all students have to sit the same CXC exam, CSEC. You may have a good math teacher in one school and a weak math teacher in another school. You may have a school where there has not been a geography teacher for the last 6 months, etc. But they all have to sit the same exam. So Leah came up with this idea. Let us do this program where we level the playing field by bringing in all the examiners for CXC, all the markers, all the master teachers. And so we did classes on radio, right? It was every Tuesday night. So CXC Power. So because of this now, we had psychologists to talk about conquering your fear, everything, study skills, everything. So JBC at the time invited me now to host this program on Tuesday Forum about study skills for young people and teaching them how to, take charge of their life and blah, blah, blah. So I hosted this program. So remember, I've been living overseas. When I left Jamaica, I left here with a jerry curl in my hair. When I moved to Holland, I couldn't find a black hairdresser at the time to do anything with my hair. So I cut it all off like a little ballet boy and started growing it back, natural hair. So while I'm overseas, I was twisting. Twisting wasn't in fashion in Jamaica. You couldn't wear twist-up hairstyle, nowhere, right? So I was twisting my hair. I was putting in the Nubian knots that we call China bob. And just, for the people listening, the difference between Nubian knots and Bantu knots, Nubian knots, the Nubians are smaller people, right? And the Bantu people are larger. So the Nubian knots are small. If you think of the goat called the Nubian goat, a very small, thin kind of goat, slim. Okay, so I put my hair in the Nubian knots and I went to host this television program. Right before the program, I was joking around with the psychologists and the school principals and everybody and saying, I wonder if anybody's going to have a problem with with my hair. But to me, it was a big joke because I didn't have a problem with my hair. And so I did the program. But by the end of the program, the station received, I think, 36 phone calls from people who were so angry. They were so angry because I had confronted them with an image of themselves that they didn't like. Because for me to be speaking the way I speak, I'm not supposed to look like that. So people called and they take that dirty rasta looking gal off the TV, take off that butu looking gal off the TV. That was the level of vitriol, right?
What?
Yes, man. Absolutely. Absolutely. The next day, people were calling the station and cussing the station. Don't ever put her back on TV. It's a disgrace. I tell you, I was working at Power 106 at the time, and a woman tracked me down at Power 106. She called me and I answered the phone. And she said, I used to hear you reading news on radio, and I was very impressed with you as a news reader. Now I have seen you on television. She said, you are a damn disgrace to women. Those were her exact words. She said, you're a damn disgrace to women. She said, if my maid, she said maid and don't say helper, the headspace, eh? She said, if my maid came to work looking like you, I would have to send her back home. She said, you are like dirt. Don't you ever come back on my TV like this again. And she hung up the phone. It was at the same time that Louis Farrakhan visited Jamaica. So everybody was all up in, Black power issues and blackness issues. So it was a big thing, it was all over. So sometimes I look back at all the newspaper articles. People wrote so many articles to the newspaper at the time because suddenly the people who were criticizing me were now pushed back because people were saying, okay, so what's the problem? What is your problem? The woman is black. She's beautiful. She has her hair. Her hair is natural. She's intelligent. She's articulate. What is the problem? So suddenly, a lot of these people were pushed up their head. People were slapping them back down. So they were not speaking out so much. They were speaking in quiet little corners. So like, call me from like the hairdresser and say, that there's some women here and they're discussing you and they're saying, oh, you're such a butu. How could you go on TV looking like that? But they weren't going to come out in public, major public, and say these things. They were now going to say these things in smaller quarters, because it confronted people with an image. Listen, because of art, the fact that I'm articulate in English and speak a little here and there, a couple other smatterings of languages too. I remember being in, I think it was mall pharmacy to be exact, and a woman, I was tendering a check or doing something, asking some question, and a lady came to me, excuse me, you're Joan Andrea Hutchinson? I said, yes. You don't look like what I expect. Because I was reading news on radio at the time. You don't look like what I expect. So I said, okay, what did you expect? I don't want you to feel the way, but I thought you were brown with long hair and slim. She asked,
Sorry.
sure, my dear, I'm sorry to disappoint you that I am none of the above. Because you see, unfortunately, Michael, there's this perception in people's heads in Jamaica. There's this perception between language use and perceived levels of intelligence. And so if you're a patois chatter, a Jamaican Creole speaker, people assume that you're not no sense and you're unintelligent and you're dunce. But if you round up your mouth and speaky spooky, and so we become a society which is more caught up with form than with the substance.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, I think an old man who their church every week and he pray, he named Brother Jonas. And every week, Brother Jonas pray, thank you, Father Jesus, for all the wonderful mercies that you're giving. And thank you, Father Jesus. But this week, the Governor General or the Prime Minister, they're going to make a special appearance at your church service. And suddenly, Brother Jonas is no longer good enough to pray. You have to find somebody who's going to round up the mouth and speak and say, dear Jesus. And so we have these issues, these socio-cultural issues, which are bigger than just the language issues. It's the way, it's the attitude we have to our language, it's the attitude we have to our natural hair, it's the attitude we have to our bodies, it's the attitude we have to certain types of jobs. And we seriously need to look at these things.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So
Wow.
It's not just a performance. So when I perform, I think it was Yasus Afari who coined the word edutainment because I never heard anybody use it before. So big up Yasus. But what I do is I do edutainment, where I educate my audiences at the same time I entertain. Because that becomes the proverbial spoonful of sugar, which makes the medicine go down. So you're giving messages, but at the same time, it's so sugar coated that people are laughing and then think that they're enjoying. It's funny, So I consider myself a descriptive writer rather than a prescriptive writer. I'm not here telling people how to live their life. I'm not pointing fingers that do this, do that, do this. But then when I write about funny situations that people do, which is in the same vein of a Louise Bennett, when Miss Lou writes something where people are laughing like, it's funny, but when you listen deeply, and when you read deeply, you realize that there's some serious issues being dealt with.
So you're holding up a mirror, basically.
Absolutely.
You skimmed over a couple of things that I want to go back to because it's not there. I mean, I just want to hear your experiences because you said you're living in Holland, you're living in Spain, and you're living in North Africa,
right?
In Tunisia, right?
Right.
That's where you were living. So,
Yeah.
so tell me about the experiences there.
Well, I was a broadcaster. I knew very early. My father was a police. My mother was a nurse. I had big dreams of traveling the world, and I just know that my parents couldn't afford to send me all over the world, and I couldn't afford to send myself all over the world neither. So I started looking for scholarships. And so I remember one summer, just when I was at JBC at the time, and I started just looking for scholarships, and I called all the embassies. I mean, kind of enough from a long time. Yeah, guess what? I embrace my enoughness. I don't shame it. I embrace it. I'm a, I'm a St. Andrew High School old girl, St. Andrew High School, we enough. And we embrace that, we accept that, right? So nobody can take it, tell we and say, yeah, no, fee, yeah, we enough. So it go, right? So I remember picking up the phone and just calling all the embassies and all the high commissions. Do you have any short scholarships? Do you have any short fellowships? That's all I did. And I remember the Korean embassy said, oh, we have a short scholarship to Korea, sure, apply for it. So I went and I applied for it. I got the scholarship because I write well. In fact, for years, people come to me when I'm writing scholarship applications and those things because, we have the gift of writing. So I applied for this scholarship to go to South Korea. I went to South Korea. It was myself and there was a young man from JIS called Carl Ford. He was an editor. So it was a course in broadcast. Was this broadcast engineering? Broadcast engineering was Japan. No, this was television production in South Korea. So we went, and it was 30 people from 28 different countries, and I was probably one of 4 women. I think, well, 4 or 5 women, but you had all these people from all these different countries. For example, their only concept of Jamaica was Bob Marley. They didn't know that we speak English. There's some persons who thought that we lived in trees and that kind of thing. But, it was an amazing experience. At this time now, I was turning 21. So in fact, I celebrated my 21st birthday in South Korea, and they had this big party for me. And, people were like, but you're only 21. We thought that television producers were like old people. I mean, I was the baby of the group. Right. I remember, for example, reggae. Everybody knows reggae. So I remember we went to a reggae club one night, and I grabbed the microphone and I started to perform, and totally loved that experience. Totally loved that experience. So we were in South Korea. We went to the demilitarized zone between South Korea and North Korea. So when people talk about the DMZ, yes, I've been there. I was 21 at the time. And so my lust for traveling and being in other spaces, that was hot at that point. So I came back to Jamaica, and then I started applying for other scholarships and fellowships and things. And so I applied for one, and then I went off to Japan to do broadcast engineering. Here's the thing with broadcast engineering. I am the world's greatest techno dunce. When it comes to what my friend did call me, my friend Mark Nelson called me, or techno peasant. He says, you're a techno peasant. I don't know how to do nothing technical, trust me. I mean, but there's a course in broadcast engineering. But the thing is, I wanted to go to Japan. How am I going to do this thing now? So I decided I'm going to fill up the application form them same way. So I'm not going to tell any lie that I'm an engineer, because I'm not an engineer. So I wrote, but you see, I will tell you, I'm a good writer. So what I did was I wrote and I said, look, I'm not an engineer, I'm a television producer. But I think it's critically important for my side to understand the technical aspects of television, and for the technical side to understand my side of television. And so the two sides can work together. Well, you see, after I write that fabulous essay, the people them had was to choose me. So I go off to Japan. So when I go off to Japan, me was the one woman in the course. Because remember, engineers, for the most part, at that time, were men. Yes. Most of them were much older, director of engineering at Radio Tanzania and director of engineering at Radio Kenya, and it's them kind of people. And me's the one little woman in the class. But I'm the woman who has the strongest skills in English. So that is what put me on par, because the lecturers were Japanese who learned English as a second language. A lot of these persons knew their native languages and they learned English as a second language. So half of the time is pure confusion and one. And I ended up having to explain stuff in English. So because I could read the manuals and I could read the books, and that is what kept me abreast of the class. So because of that, I know the guys always want to help me with the homework because I could help them with their English and things. So I learned a lot. I mean, trust me, I learned so much in that program. And then after that, I came, and as I tell you, I couldn't afford the traveling. But here was my opportunity. So I applied. I went to the US, I went to Benin, I went to all these places. So when I applied for the one to go to Holland now, that was Radio Netherlands, and at that point I said, I think I want to leave Jamaica for a couple of years. So I sold my car and everything. I said, okay, I'm going to Radio Netherlands. when that course is finished, I'm going to try to get a job in Europe. And so I did, or well, I attempted to. So I did the course. There was a journalist, a Jamaican journalist called Fitzroy Nation. He's now dead. He was at the Interpress Service, IPS, in Holland. So I knew him. So, I went to broadcasting school in Holland, and, it was really, really very good. Met one of the greatest loves of my life while I was in Holland. So when my course finished, your mother sent you, the Jamaican folk song, send Nicky Gar school, Nicky Gar man yard. Okay.
Yes.
Send me Ghana broadcasting school, Holland, Nicky Gar man yard. Anyway, no. So my course finished, and I decided I didn't want to come back to Jamaica. Well, I knew before that I wasn't bonded. That was a good thing. I was not bonded. So I wanted to stay on. I wanted to get a job in Europe, etc. I remember I applied, I started applying for jobs all over the place. The BBC shortlisted me. So Hugh Crosskill was working with the BBC at the time. And he called me, even before the BBC called me to say that they had shortlisted me. Hugh Crosskill called me one away. I'm in Holland, he's in the UK. He said, Joan, them shortlisted you. I mean, just listen for a call from them, because they will fly you over for the interview. And I'm over the moon, I'm excited. And bam, recession happened. And then the BBC started cutting staff, and I was distressed, because suddenly here was my opportunity, and it went right out the door. So here am I in Holland, I'm applying for jobs all over the place, and it's just not happening. And so after a year in Holland, I said to myself, this is not going to happen. I'm going to just pack up my things and go back to Jamaica. So I started writing to my friends, because we don't have cell phone and them things at the time. So I was writing to my friends and telling them that I was coming back home to Jamaica. I felt despondent. I felt disappointed. I felt not embarrassed, but I did kind of feel away, because we did never plan to come back. And I think I had booked my ticket already. Yes, I had booked my ticket already to come home. And I got a phone call from the same Fitzroy Nation. He said to me, Joan, look here now. What you know about international cooperation? I said nothing. Him say, what you know about North-South dialogue? I said nothing. Him say, you try to know something, because a man is going to call you. A man named Chef Townis is going to call you, because he has a mandate to set up an international network of NGOs. He's going to move first to Spain, but they have to, for their trial year, but they eventually have to move to Tunisia. He's going to call you, because he called me and said him looking for an writer, publication specialist, etc. I'm going to give you your name. So try go read about North-South cooperation. I say, all right. The man called me and said, hey, you Andrea? I said, yes. He says, okay, meet me in Rotterdam tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock. At the time I'm living with my Ghanaian boyfriend. And I'm like, John, I really don't. I'm tired. I'm just going to pack up and go back to Jamaica. I'm feeling so depressed and things. And can't bother. He says, no, Andrea, you need to go. I said, I can't bother. I just don't feel to go. He says, Andrea, just give it a last shot. Go. So he took me to the train station, put me on the train, and I jumped on the train. We were living in Hilversum, which is a broadcasting capital. So I got on the train, took a couple of hours, went down to Rotterdam to meet this man, Chef Townis. So, of course, me, Jamaican, in foreign, you have to have on your green, black, and gold. So I had on a little green, black, and gold, a little hat. It was not tam, a little hat. And I had on these, what they call these MC Hammer pants. Remember MC Hammer?
Oh, yes.
Right.
Yeah,
Because I used to sew those things. I used to make them. So I had on the MC Hammer pants and a black top and, looking like a little rebel. Green, black, and gold, and looking like a rebel. So I walked into this place, and this man, when I walked to him, I said, are you Chef Townis? And he said, yes. You see the man eyed and boggled, like, he's looking at me like, what? Because this is not what he's expecting, because Fitzroy Nation has told him that this woman is an editor and she's a publication specialist and she blah, 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 blah. The man, trust me, the man looked at me, if I ever encountered racism, that is where it was. The man looked me up, he looked me down, as if, huh? Because, you're coming from this little barefoot, block pocket, Ganja Island as far as they are concerned. Because look, in my time in Holland, first week in Holland, people were coming to me and asking me, hey, can we get into the drug trade with you? Because you come from Jamaica, you must know where the good ganja grow. When I tell them, where I saw ganja for the first time? In Holland.
Yes.
So when I tell them that I've never seen ganja, that's not possible because you're from Jamaica. Doesn't it just grow all over the sidewalks? Doesn't everybody have pots of it in their backyard? And doesn't it? No. right? In fact, there's a big joke because the first time I went into a coffee shop when I was at broadcasting school in Holland, went and did my little documentary, radio documentary, and I wanted to look at the drug policy in Holland because coming from Jamaica, I was fascinated. Listen, man, they say we're going at 2-3 coffee shop, like make a microphone and me interview people. Why do you smoke and blah blah blah. We're going to one place. One guy said to me, one of the servers, he says, "You want to see the marijuana menu?" I said, menu. So he pulled out a book that had like all these little sample packets with different types of I'm like totally confused. We just pint because I had to purchase some because this was part of my assignment. The teachers gave me money to do. Me just pint about something and tell him that one, right?
Yeah.
But I remember being in the coffee shops, and by the third coffee shop, my head was swirling. And it's a big joke with my Dutch friends because they said, "Joan, you sat on the sidewalk for the next hour and a half and you just laughed." Mr. It was funny. The canal right there. You remember this movie with this car that had a smiley face long time ago, right? The canal just had this little smiley face. The water just running in the canal, all these smiley faces. The police car passing, it had a smiley face. Everybody just passing is like everybody's smiling. And I'm just sitting on the sidewalk and I'm just laughing. Okay. So I've never smoked, but I know that is what would happen to me if I smoke. So back to meeting this man in Rotterdam. So
Yes.
he said to me, I'd like to invite you over. We're in Spain. We're going to be in Spain for a year to year and a half. While we set up to move off to Tunisia. I'm going to fly over to Spain for 2 weeks to see whether or not it's a job you can do. But me know he was a little skeptical, right? Anyway, he fly me over to Spain. By the second day, he signed my contract. I had the job. But I already had my ticket to Jamaica. So I came back to Holland and I came home to Jamaica just on a little vacation, because I already had my ticket. And then they flew me back to Spain. So that's how I ended up being in Spain. International organization. Nelson Mandela was actually our honorary president. So I did that point. We had like about 40 member countries. So our mandate was to organize lots of conferences and workshops and do lots of publications on gender issues, on environmental issues, on human rights issues. So, I was living out of a suitcase for the next 2 years. You'd be flying to Malaysia this week for a gender conference, and then you're going somewhere in Latin America next week for a human rights conference, and then you're back to this. Trust me, but it was an amazing time. I met so many different persons from so many different countries, and you realize in the same way you have stereotypes about other people, they have stereotypes about you too. And I remember being in an environment where, by virtue of being Black, they didn't believe that I could speak good English, and so I had somebody who, whenever he had an issue with English, he would turn to the little Scottish girl in the office. "Hey, Susan, how do you say in English so-and-so?" And Susan would turn to me and say, "Grammar Queen, how do you say in English?" And of course, it used to burn him, you see, he never lied. Used to burn him, right? So I suppose that's the extent of racism that I've actually encountered, But what it does is it makes you realize that, we're a lot more similar than we are different. We are.
Definitely.
You meet all these people from all over the world, but we really are very similar. Our cultures may be a little different, but at the end of the day, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we all have the same needs. We all have the same needs. So I wrote all that material while I was overseas to kind of just keep in touch with Jamaica. I come back home, I do these performances out at the old jail out in Port Royal, and then I remember they had a launch, Calabash launch. I kept on every time I perform, I say, "Oh, this is from my upcoming book. This is from my upcoming book. This is from my upcoming book." I remember Faye Ellens said to me, "Stop talking about upcoming book and write the book." No? I went to a Calabash launch once at Red Bones. It would have been about September. And I saw Carolyn Cooper. And I said to her, so I performed. And I said, "Carolyn, why do you have book? Everybody have book, and me I write. It's just, I said, what is stopping you? What is stopping you?" This was September. I launched my first book because I'd done my CDs before. My first book was done in time for Christmas, so it came out I think the first week of December. It dropped because I had the material already. It was
Right.
a matter of doing the book. So I had what's his name? Not last May. The cartoon, not Leandro, Lord, the name has slipped me. Whatever. He did that's what his name. One of the famous cartoonists for the Gleaner. Clovis. Yes.
Clovis, right.
Yes, had Clovis do the illustrations for my first book. So that book was called Let Me Tell You. You know,
Okay.
yeah, and it's just a compilation of poems and dramatic monologues about Jamaica and Jamaicans. Hey, Jamaicans fascinating, bad, bad,
Mm-hmm.
bad, 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 bad. Yep. So that's the writing journey, and since then I have 3 books. My second book was called In My Heart, which is
Mm-hmm.
a book of love poetry. Again, though, because you see, I think that there are a lot of people who feel that the Jamaican language can only be used to show rough and crude concepts. And I said, no, we've got to show that the language itself is beautiful and the language can be used for other things too, right? Not just the rough and the cruff and cuss off people and things. So my second book is called In My Heart. I just do a very short poem. It's called Ayumi Wafi David.
Yes.
Because see, again, as I tell you, everything I do, there's a lot of teaching. I think I was born to teach. I tell people I was born to teach. You know, as a woman, you put on a little weight, you probably think your partner doesn't like you anymore. A man, you lose little of your hair, you get a little big belly, you think your partner don't like you. And usually we are the ones with the issues. Our partners don't have no problems. So the poem said, look, even if you put on 50 pounds, even if you're sick and maga down, even if you bleach the black for fever brown, and you the one for David. Even if your foot shaped like apple yam and your hand look like Sanga the banana man, even if you claim Rasta but quietly lick the ham, and you the one for David. So even though you're behaving like a clown and I feel name them call all over town, and you the one for be around, and just you the one for David. That's the kind of material that's in that book. And hear what is funny about that book. I realize that a lot of people we don't know how to, especially man, because society tells us a man nothing have it intelligent and those things. Yeah. So what I did was the book, right? It runs a gamut of emotions from when you meet somebody and you're excited, So there are poems that say, what you're afraid. When you're so afraid of, you're afraid to fall in love. Then maybe if walk ways, when you go ways, if push comes to shove, love have teeth and teeth can bite. So even while love flowing, we could take the bad, balance out the good. That's better than not knowing. Because if you're afraid of love, you will never live. You're gonna just exist from year to year. We could plunge into this thing headlock and forget your fear. So it runs through the gamut from when you just meet and you're excited to when you're in a relationship. You talk about, you're the person I want to be with, then to when the relationship start go bad, to when the relationship mash up. So I made the book with a bookmarker. And I said, if you don't know how to say what you want to say it to somebody, you see somebody and you like them and you want to give them a talk, you get the book, you take the bookmarker, you put it at the particular page with that particular poem, and you deliver it. Listen to me, the number of people I have had who have come to me. I remember a doctor called me one night and he said, Joan, I just want to tell you something. Me and my wife were having problems, I'm just find the poem and you want to do it. And when she lie down in the bed, with her night, we just read the poem to her. I just want to know it's a thing sweet with me and my wife again. A lady come and said there's a guy she see long time and she like him and but she never know how to talk with him kind of, and she find the point that say, like, make we give this thing a try, right? And so that is what that book did. And then my last book is I think my favorite of my 3 books. That book is called Kinti Kiba Hartman. And that one for me celebrates what I call the creativity of Jamaican poor people. Because when you're rich, you're not creative, right? Because you have money to buy things. When you're poor, you have to be creative. You see, a lot of people grew up poor in many countries, not just Jamaica. They didn't know they were poor until they grew up and they look back at their life and say, hold on, but we never had running water. Hold on. We never had, I want shoes today. We did poor. But Jamaican parents are so creative that you grew up not knowing that you were poor because of the level of creativity. So I wanted to use that book to celebrate the creativity of Jamaican poor people. And so, it talks about the things we used to do when parents used to grate, not grate, grate coconut, you grate, right? So when your parents used to grate the coconut, you use the coconut milk to make rice and peas, and then you use the coconut trash now you make with name nut drops, greater cake, and stuff like that. When your clothes tear, and then you used to patch it, or when your collar on your shirt start to, the back of your collar start to tear up, and then they you know how to do that? You tear off the collar, spin it round, and stitch it down again. So I use that, celebrate the creativity of Jamaican poor people. When you have the chicken, you don't have no oil for fry the chicken. You cut off the chicken skin or the chicken fat, and you fry that up. You get oil to fry the very same chicken. When you look at the creativity, it wasn't until I became an adult that I knew that you could use fresh bread to make bread pudding. Because all our lives we saw our parents leave back the little steel part of the bread back and thing. Or sometimes we have some greeny and browny flowers. Right? They would just cut it off. But when your mother, soak that in a little milk and put in the cinnamon and the thing and little sugar and butter, and by the time you done it, you have this fabulous tasting bread pudding. But we didn't know because our parents were just so creative. So that last book celebrates the creativity of Jamaican poor people. When children now talk about snacks was things like condensed milk and bread. That was snack. Red herring. And if you say red herring, Michael, you know that you're totally off, because it's not herring. It's one word, red herring.
I feel very attacked. I don't know why you're coming for me. Why are you coming for me with these things?
It's one word, red herring. Red herring. Red herring. When children used to put milk powder in their hand and lick it, that was a snack. So when your shoes used to get tight and then cut out the toe. I think it was mostly girls that happened to. You cut out the toe, right? And so if the shoes get even tighter, you cut out the back. So you walk out the street and make a juke in your toe and juke in your heel back, you have shoes, right? The things, even like bush medicine. When Pickney used to have mumps and they used to tie up, I think, mumps clot. You know mumps clot?
No.
Oh my God, I need to send you the book, right? Because what they used to do is, when you have mumps, your cheeks get swollen, right? Your lymph nodes underneath your neck, right? They get swollen and your cheek, right? So they used to have a thing called mumps cloth. So it's like you take a nappy or you take a piece of cloth, you tie it from under the chin. So you tie, the two ends are on top of your head. So you look like a little bunny rabbit, because it's like you have these two little A's.
Okay, yeah.
In order to make the swelling go down, they used to put ashes inside the mumps cloth. Yeah, man, anybody older than you will tell you that. Used to put ashes inside of the mumps cloth. Simple things like when you had like a blacky pot, you never had Scotch-Brite in those things. So you use the same coconut husk, and you use dirt, you use ashes, you use sand, just cover your pots, because they're abrasive. When little girls never had fancy dollies and things like a coconut. You take a, coconut, the coconut husk, you drain out the water of the coconut, you tell your father when him cutting the coconut, leave the hair on the coconut. And the girls put ribbon in that, sometimes that was them dolly.
Wow.
Take a cactus, the flat tuna cactus plant, and you cut out, you shape that out, that is a dolly. Or you take a aerated water bottle. You know aerated water, Michael?
Yes, man. Soda.
Pop. Right. Aerated water. It's a big thing, when you get aerated water. And so you take some long blades of grass and you stuff it in the top of the bottle, because the bottle neck is narrow. You stuff it in the bottle of the bottle neck, the mouth of the bottle, and then the grass hangs over the side. That is your dolly with tall hair. Dolly. Yeah.
Nice.
So the books, half an exercise book after the days of slate and slate pencil, when exercise book became a new thing. People carried a half an exercise book to school. Your parents cut the exercise book in half. I remember an old lady tell me that her mother said, "Look here, we don't have no money, so you press too hard on the pencil, because when you reach the end of the book, you're going to have to rub it out and start again."
Wow.
So Picnic carry half a book and half pencil. Well, you never have sharpener, Michael, to sharpen your pencil. Do you know how to sharpen pencil without a sharpener?
With the knife.
Oh, Jesus, I tell you, see. Oh, no. And which child has a knife at school? You don't have a knife. What you do, you take the pencil and you bite it. You bite off the wood on one side, and you turn it and you bite again. And you turn and you bite. So what you're doing is you're removing the wood. So you're the point, and then the point is going to be blunt. Now you want it sharp. So you rub it against a wall, and you turn it, and you rub it against the wall, and you rub it down. That's how you sharpen pencil, man. You don't have no sharpener. So these are the creative things that our Jamaican people used to do, you know. So as I said, the book is called Kinti Kibahat Bon, and there's a CD version of the book, and that is just celebrating. When you go out and you never have, you travel. My mother did this. You travel overseas, you don't want to carry your rollers, your setters as a woman. You just go. When you reach, you get a piece of newspaper. You fold the newspaper into tiny pieces, and you set your hair. Okay. You set your hair newspaper. Oh yes, oh yes. Yeah.
So where can people find the books and the CDs? So.
All right. Well, unfortunately, most of the books are out of print. I really need to do a reprint. The CDs are in places like, I think Craft Cottage is the only place right now that has CDs. And if push come to shove, you can always link me up on Facebook, hook me up on Facebook.
Okay.
You know, I can get stuff.
You never thought of putting those things up digitally, like on CD Baby?
Michael, I'm a little behind with the technology. I am just at the point of getting that organized now.
We're going to talk afterwards. We'll talk all about these things afterwards. This is exciting.
Yeah, because, you know, people, I tell you, a lot of people across the world use the work when they are doing research on Jamaican culture. I get phone calls from Australia, from this country, from that. I'm coming to Jamaica. I'm a PhD candidate. I'm researching Jamaican culture. And I'm always being interviewed. You know, I've been interviewed by BBC, interviewed by Channel 4. I've written a lot. For example, I wrote about Usain Bolt. I wrote about Merlin Ottey. I wrote about the Reggae Boys. I wrote about the bobsled team. And so, for example, when the Reggae Boys were going to France for World Cup, that was 1998, was it?
98.
98, yeah. I wrote a piece, and I wrote the piece in Jamaican language, and I also did a kind of dub poetry piece for it, where I combined French. It was called Les Reggae Boys, and I Félicitons l'équipe de Jamaïque, and I did that, and I actually won a Jammy Award for it that year, for dub poetry in French. And when they went to France, Renee Simons told me, I mean, they took the CD with them and they were playing it to kind of motivate the team and that kind of thing. So, yeah, you know, when the BBC Channel 4 came to interview Jamaicans about the celebrations in association with the Reggae Boys and thing, you know, Jampro called me and said, can you take the Channel 4 team around? So I was like, taking them all over the country, interviewing people, etc. And, you know, they interviewed me as well. So, yeah, we do one or two little things, you know. Sure.
One and two little things, right? Well, boy, you've done a lot actually, and there's more to be done. But yeah, we're going to talk about those things afterwards.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, I have a couple more, you know, proverbs. Let me see. Willing picnic pupu enough.
Oh yes. Sometimes you have to just hold back. Anytime there's an English proverb I'm trying to remember that has the same meaning. It's slipping me though. But you know, as I say, you know, the proverbs have so many levels of meaning, right? I don't know if you know, thief never love to see thief. I spoke about that one before. Thief never love to see thief carry long bag.
No, you never mentioned that one before.
Thief never love to see thief carry long bag. So I've been doing something wrong all along. I've been thieving out the company money all along, or thieving out the company resources and carrying to my yard and ting. And all of a sudden, me notice say somebody else had me run down and tell boss, you know, I noticed Michael bag look very big when he's leaving in the evenings. No, me was doing the whole thing all along, you know, right? Thief never love to see thief carry long bag. It is true. Thief never love to see thief carry long bag, you know. And you know, when we talk about example, crooked stick, crooked shadow. You never say kicking cow without kicking calf. You know, these are the kinds of proverbs that teach you that you have to set the right example, right? There's one also that says, you've got to control your children. If you're not tie bad dog, you might go get with and yam your same one supper. If you're not tie the bad dog, you might go get with and yam your same one supper. So we have to ensure, you know, but do you know what a kreng is?
No, but I've heard the name. I don't know what it is.
Michael would say it's a kreng. Right?
kreng.
A kreng was an old wire basket, right? So in the days before them had fridge and thing, they used to have this wire basket called a kreng. So it's over the fireside, you know, the outdoor fireside or in the outdoor kitchen. And it's this heat and the smoke that would go up and cure the meat. Remember, there's no fridge, no stove.
Right, right.
Up in the ceiling with the meat up. So you walk in there and you look up into the crank and you see the nice piece of pork and goat and ooh, your mouth salivating, Lord. I want that piece of pork, but your eye, as in your eye, is not enough to look up there and want it. So really the proverb says, yai can't take meat out of crane, which means if you want something, you have to work. You can't just say, boy, I want to go to university, and you never try. Boy, I love to lose some weight, you never try. Boy, I want to learn to play the guitar, you never try. No, you have to do something. You can't just wish for it to happen. Wishing is not enough. So the proverb says, yai can't take meat out of crane.
Yes, yes, yes. All right, this one, Kreng.
Yes.
This one, I've always wondered who Jack Mandora is, because Jack Mandora may not choose none. I was like, what?
Well, Jack Mandora was said to be the keeper of the gates of heaven. He was supposed to be the keeper of the gates of heaven. So when you get there on that appointed day, when you're dead and you reach the appointed day, and they ask, Michael, you are here. What kind of life have you lived? What have you done? And you can look at your scroll. You do bad things, you good did it right. It was basically saying, you have taken no part, no side in anything. You have chosen nothing. I'm here tabula rasa. I'm here clean, nothing. Jack Mandora, me not choose none. You have not been involved in nothing. Yeah. So as I said, Jack Mandora was supposed to be the keeper of the gates of heaven. So this is your declaration.
Wow.
You not choose none. You never do not yet. Innocent Abigail.
Yes. Oh, that's great. Because I've always wondered, and I know a whole lot of people wonder. So this
is the one. I tell you, I'm so privileged to have had the moments that I had with Miss Lou, because there are a lot of things that she explained to me that I really hold dear. So things like that.
Excellent. This is wonderful. I've been doing these podcast episodes, and some of it is to share the stories of people who I just think their stories need to be shared, and some of it is also to have on record some of these cultural things, and some of them exist in different places, but it's a different way, because I know that there's some friends of mine who have moved to other parts of the world, and they have children and they want to share the culture somehow with their children, and sometimes this is what they grab for.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate your agreeing to come on this and to share, and you shared so much, and I really, really love that.
Yeah,
I really do appreciate it.
Happy.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really very happy about the work in the diaspora that I have done. For example, I've taken part in conferences in the UK, valuing Caribbean languages, where I go along with Professor Devonish. I received a language ambassador award from the City College of Birmingham for my work in the UK, just work in the diaspora. And I really love that when people in the diaspora come up to me and say, boy, after your show, I was able to explain this to my child, etc. It's the edutainment, it's the education wrapped up with the entertainment. It is very important for us to keep on doing that work.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, until next time, but don't hang up, don't go nowhere, because we won't talk. Until next time, thank you. All right. Thanks again for joining me on this episode of Mike's Moment Of. I'm super grateful to Joan for being my guest. Right, so remember, if you like the episode or you like any of the episodes, share it this week with at least one friend. That would be a big favor to me. I really appreciate that. And as usual, if you haven't already, subscribe, like, comment, rate, share. Okay, and all the links are in the show notes. And if you want to support in another way through buymeacoffee.com, you can. The link is in the notes. All right. Until next time, take care.